Welcome to Film at 50, a podcast that celebrates semi-centennials in the world of cinema. I'm your host, Brian Rowe. Very excited to welcome Jonathan Moore back to the podcast, this time to talk about Dr. PHIBES Rises Again, which was released 50 years ago in July of 1972. How are we doing, Jonathan?
Well, I can't believe it's been 50 years, Brian.
It's always 50 years. I mean, whenever you come on my podcast, Jonathan, and we're talking about a movie from 37 years ago, it's going to be kind of confusing for the listener.
I know. It's confusing for me because every time I come on, it's always 50 years.
Yep. Time
like
just keeps
in this weird time warp.
Time just keeps moving forward. And, you know, movies came out every week back in the day for decades. And such was the case in 1972, Jonathan. We got movies that year.
It's shocking.
Including Dr. PHIBES Rises Again, which is the sequel to the Abominable Dr. PHIBES, which came out in 71. You typically come on my podcast to talk about horror films that have a sequel that came out a year later.
I know. This seems to be happening with frightening regularity.
This is the third time. We had, or was it the second time?
Well, I don't know. I think, we had House of Dark Shadows, Night of Dark Shadows.
Yeah.
The Abominable Dr. PHIBES, the Night Stalker.
Oh, we talked about the Night Stalker, which was which premiered on television in early 72, and that has a television movie sequel that aired in 73, right?
That's right.
Okay, so we're on movie 5 of 6. So there's still the Night Stalker sequel.
Well, we better find another one, Brian, because this can't stop.
Well, I mean, there's always these horror figures like Vincent Price. Like I looked to see, like, well, what did he do in 73? And it's not a sequel to Dr. PHIBES, but what's it called? Theater of Blood?
Theater of Blood. Yeah, that's a great movie.
Is that an anthology movie or no?
No.
It's just one story? Okay.
It's just like Dr. PHIBES, except about the stage.
Oh, okay. But he's not playing Doctor. This is the end of the road for Dr. PHIBES, right? There's not another one after this.
It wasn't supposed to be, but it was.
Yes, no. As we will get into, there were talks about there being a third movie, and then it just never came to be. And that happens sometimes. Sometimes if the second film doesn't perform up to expectations, if they haven't written the script yet and they haven't gone in production, like sometimes it just doesn't happen, even if there is an expectation at some point, like maybe we'll do a third one right after the second. Since these movies were made so quickly, to have a sequel come out about a year later after the release of the first one, I mean, you don't really see it that much now. I mean, usually it's 2 to 3 years. And if they come out really fast, usually they shoot both at the same time to save money. But back in the 70s, you'd have these lower budget horror films. They would just like churn them out like one a year kind of a thing. So, and that was the case with Dr. PHIBES, which you wish there could have been more, a series of 7.
Well, okay. So I never watched Dr. PHIBES Rises Again until a few days ago because.
But you'd never seen it?
No, because I didn't want to see it because I heard it wasn't as good as the first one.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't want my wonderful Dr. PHIBES to be, ruined. But I did this for you, Brian.
Oh, I thought you were like a huge Vincent Price fan and see everything.
Yes, I am. Oh, no. I only see things. So I see like the really good stuff, right? And so if I'm going to go and I fall in love with a movie like The Abominable Dr. PHIBES.
Yeah.
And I hear that the sequel just isn't as good, then I try to steer clear of it because I like my memories to be preserved of the first.
Well, wouldn't you rather watch it for yourself and make your own decision rather than just let other people say it's not as good?
No, because I trust the people that
you trust the people.
Yeah, I do. Like, it's sort of like Brian, somebody says, Brian, honey, do not stick your hand on the stove. Okay. Mm-hmm. Like your mother says that, right? I mean, because you're going to get burnt. Okay. Mm-hmm. I mean, wouldn't you listen to your mother?
We've talked about this before. I had a guest on. We did a 90th anniversary bonus episode about the original Frankenstein and Dracula. And my guest said that the original 1931 Dracula with Bela Lugosi was his favorite horror movie of all time. And then I just asked, so what do you think of the 1936 sequel, Dracula's Daughter? It's, you know, it's a little different. It doesn't have Bela Lugosi, but kind of twisted. It's got some interesting, you know, elements to it. And so, like, what are your thoughts on that? And he goes, "Oh, I've never seen it. I have no interest." I'm like,
It's
what?
interesting. So
like, your favorite horror movie, you haven't seen the sequel? And he's like, no. And that just is strange to me. I do not have that kind of discipline, Jonathan.
Who is this guy? I need to talk to him.
I think you guys would get along. His name's Mark.
Yeah, I think so.
And he's been on, if you go back into the archives, he's been on 5 or 6 times.
Okay.
And most recently, maybe this last January, we talked to film, and he loves horror films. So we've done two regular episodes for the podcast about horror films, and then we did a 90th anniversary retrospective of Frankenstein and Dracula last year. And it was so much fun to revisit those 2 movies and watch them again. And I was just like, okay, I understand if Bela Lugosi is not in the sequel. You're like, well, it's only semi-connected to the first one. I don't have to see it. But when Abominable Dr. Phibes, which is a movie you enjoy, has a sequel a year later with Vincent Price, he's still the guy. It's not like they got a different actor. I feel like you would have been intrigued to see it regardless of what the word was about it.
Well, when I was younger, before the internet, you know, I mean, we always had the internet, but before I really got into like researching things. So when I first got the DVD box set, so what the Universal Monster movies, okay, had used to rent them from Major Video, Blockbuster, those places.
Hollywood Video, that was my place.
You went to Hollywood Video, yeah. I never actually had a card for Hollywood Video. But I went to Hollywood Video when they shut down, and I was able to get some good VHS from Hollywood Video when they were closing. I still remember that entire period when all of the movie rental stores were shutting down, Brian. Like, it was such a sad time. Like, it was really, really sad to me.
It happened so quickly too.
I know.
It was like, what there was that documentary I watched on Netflix, of course, streaming, about the rise and fall of Blockbuster. And what did they say? It was like 2004 was like the height of Blockbuster. They had like the most video stores in the country in 2004. And then like 10 years later, it's over. I mean, it was so quick how that went down. And nowadays, the only video store that I have close in Northern Nevada is the library. That's it.
Yeah.
Library has the one that I go to. It's got 4 aisles of DVDs and Blu-rays, which is awesome. And that's it. It's the only place you can browse movies.
You know, up here, before probably like prior to 2016, every Safeway still had a video rental store.
Oh, really? I remember that in the 90s. Yeah. Go to the grocery store and browse the movie shelves.
You could rent the videos from Safeway, and then they just got rid of it. They, you know, got one of those. It's not a red box. It's one of the knockoff ones. They installed those in the Safeway stores. So, yeah, but it was kind of cool because when the first Star Wars sequel came out, I was able to go down to Safeway and I was able to rent it and have a movie night. So it was kind of cool. It was
the first prequel, you mean? Like Phantom Menace?
No, the sequel. The sequel.
You were around in 1980?
Series. No. Oh. The sequel series, Brian.
Oh, like the most recent ones, the Force
Disney
Awakens.
Ones. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You were able to rent that movie from the grocery store?
Yeah.
In like 2016 when that came out on home video?
Yeah. It was great.
Interesting. Do you think that Dr. Phibes Rises Again has ever been available for rent in a grocery store?
I probably. Actually.
I don't think it has.
No, I think so.
You do?
Yeah. Kroger used to have a really phenomenal movie rental. Like, you got all sorts of weird, like, horror movie sequels in these Kroger grocery store video rental places. Like, they have really good stuff. Like, I used to go and I used to get them all the time. So
I don't remember, you know, it's funny. I remember browsing the horror section in the 90s all the time, and I don't really have a lot of memories of seeing Vincent Price. in the horror section at my Hollywood and Blockbuster Video, even before I moved to Reno, back when I was in Roseville, California, just outside of Sacramento, like the video stores there, their selection for older horror films was never great. Like they had the big ones, like the really important ones, but I feel like even at those major like video store chains, I wonder if they had Dr. Phibe's Rises Again. Would you say this is kind of like a smaller horror film of the early 70s, one that wasn't as readily available throughout the years?
Say it probably doesn't have the same circulation as something like the Abominable Dr. Phibe's.
Well, maybe if the video store, if they purchased the first one, maybe they would have gotten the second one too.
But I definitely got I definitely rented some Vincent Price movies from Blockbuster.
Okay.
So yeah, but I did. But yeah, I never recall seeing this one. But it has such a strange poster, you know.
Of that woman.
The VHS cover, yeah, with was it a spider on her face?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different vibe than the poster of Abominable, which, remember, it didn't have that like a play on the love story tagline, yeah. And was a little bit more tongue in cheek. And then they changed the advertising after Abominable came out because people didn't know if it was a scary movie or a comedy. Yeah, so they had to change the marketing. So if the marketing for the sequel was more like it's a scary movie, right? Although there is humor in this one, and you will be surprised, Jonathan, because I remember talking to you about, I didn't think the humor worked in Abominable, right?
Yeah, I know.
And not to say that the humor is great in the sequel, but there were 2 lines that made me smile, and I thought,
wow, 2 lines, Brian. I am so happy for you.
This has been a thing. I mean, we'll see how the Night Stalker sequel is, but you'll be shocked by this. I had a little bit better time watching Dr. Phibe's Rises Again than Abominable. Are you shocked by this?
No, because I know you. You always come up with these disappointing opinions.
Now, I wasn't a big fan of Abominable, so it was one of those which happens here and there, where I put on this movie last night with no expectations. I was just like, okay, here we go. And it, like, the scenes of dialogue with anyone outside of Vincent Price still is kind of a slog. Like, I'm still like, the cast they get for these things, like these British character actors, there's just something like that's just not pulling me in. Like I don't know if it's the major story itself or the actors or the script or something.
No
but but what I thought worked better in the sequel was, I thought the moments of terror, I thought, were more visceral, a little bit more violent, and I thought had a little bit more power to them than some of the scenes from Abominable. You don't feel that?
No.
Why?
What do you mean? The moments of terror were a little more.
Yeah, I wrote down 3 of them.
Powerful. Oh my god! All right,
I wrote down 3.
Well, let's get into it then.
Okay. Okay. So before we get into more of our thoughts on Rises Again, like, so what did you do any research for this? I pulled up some trivia here. I mean, obviously the big one is that there was talk of there being a 3rd movie, and then it never came to be. Like, what else do you know about the sequel?
Well, I know that Price and Robert Query didn't get along.
They didn't get along. Mm-mm. Yeah.
So Query was, basically American International was giving Vincent Price the boot.
Mm-hmm.
And so they brought in Query to be the new horror film star. And so there was a lot of tension on this set, just sort of similar with the last Dr. Phibe's movie. I don't know what's going on with these movies, but there's a lot of tension surrounding these movies all the time. It's like nobody can work well together. I don't know.
Can we just get along? It's like, what's happening?
And so you remember that we had the last 2 times, the 2 lead actors were having some sort of feud or something. And the one guy, remind me of his name again.
Who was it Joseph Cotton in Abominable?
Joseph
So Vincent Price was having a quarrel with Cotton in the original, and then the sequel, he's having problems with Robert Query, the other kind of main actor in this. Like, what's going? And that, I mean, I feel like if it's happening on every movie, it's Vincent Price's problem, right?
I wouldn't say that. I don't think Vincent Price has problems.
He seems like, from anything I've seen with him, he seems so charming, so nice.
Yeah,
I
and that's
can't
what
imagine
everybody says.
I can't imagine he's the issue here.
Well, I think it's just, in this particular, I mean, last time it seemed like it was just because Price was being a ham and Joseph Cotton just didn't really, whatever. I don't know what was going on there, but and then maybe Joseph Cotton was messing up Price's makeup. Remember that whole little thing?
Oh,
It's
right.
probably just like fun little playing around or whatever. But this time it was actual pretty. We use words like visceral.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan, it seems pretty visceral this time. Like there seemed to be actual tension between these two guys that was that you couldn't just discount as just sort of fun and playing around.
So Robert Quarry was supposed to kind of replace Vincent Price as the American International Pictures new horror star. That did not take, right? Like after the sequel, did he
No,
do anything else
because
horror?
well, I think he did like a couple films
Maybe
for
one or two
them,
more.
but then sort of the whole genre just went in a different direction. So you've got classic, more Edgar Allan Poe
Mm-hmm.
type horror stories and films that Vincent Price had been associated with
Mm-hmm.
for many years, and then they're just sort of going in a more different direction because of everything that's coming out with The Exorcist and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, eventually getting to Halloween. So the whole trajectory of the horror genre just sort of changed. And so Robert Corey was just sort of cut out to be this sort of like Vincent Price type classic monster type
Yeah.
character. And that the genre just shifted in a different direction. So a lot of the projects that he would have been affiliated with were just sort of scrapped.
As it often does. I mean, I've been curious to see what happens to the horror movie landscape after The Exorcist comes out at the end of 73, because watching this movie last night, it does very much feel like it could have been made in like 65. Like there's not anything in Dr. PHIBES Rises Again where I'm like, this is clearly the early 70s, outside of a little bit more gore, some more violence to the scenes of people getting mutilated. So,
no, it feels like a very 60s horror film outside of the level of violence.
So I'm curious, like, because I know Vincent Price was working all the time up until the end. So I'm curious, like, what does a 1977 horror film starring Vincent Price look like? Because I got a couple Scream Factory Blu-ray sets of Vincent Price's work, and I want to say I think this might have been in that set that I had a while back, and this might have been the newest one. Like, I don't remember seeing a lot of like 76, 79. I feel like after the mid 70s, Vincent Price's like mode of horror films goes away.
He shifts to television.
Television,
right?
okay.
He became, because we discussed Vincent Price is Vincent Price. He himself is the villain. He himself is the monster, and so he took all of his years of experience in the film industry and sort of transferred that as just being a personality, a celebrity personality, and that people would associate with, scary things. Like, he did all the stints on the Muppet Show.
That's a great episode. That was on Disney Plus. I watched that.
Did different talk shows and things along those lines. He gave his image to like marketing for like board games and things along those lines. And so he found a way to still sort of build upon his classic catalog and the persona that he created for himself and still be relevant. And then of course when Thriller came out, then he was like super relevant all over again.
So is this kind of the end of his line of leading roles in horror films? Like,
well, I would
Theater of Blood, is he the lead?
Yes, he is.
Okay. So after that
was very much a Vincent Price film.
Okay. So like after 73, 74, I feel like maybe his leading roles in these kind of movies are petering out, right?
I would say that, it's coming towards the end. Yeah. Because after Thriller, then he gets all sorts of, new life and all sorts of stuff like that. He's on the Scooby-Doo series, 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo. And then he's got all sorts of other things going on. And then he's, of course, in the Tim Burton film. And then he does stuff for Disney, with the Phantom Manor, Haunted Mansion thing. So he's got a whole bunch of other stuff going on. Like, his career never stopped, which I think is really cool. He just adapted to the changes in the times, which I think made him super successful.
I love those actors that just work and work and work for decades, and then you see like their last year of work is the year they died.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they work to the end,
Yeah, it's kind of
creative
like
until the end.
kind of like Betty White,
Betty White, yep.
in a lot of ways.
Cloris
'Cause
Leachman. What did Cloris Leachman say? Like she just wants to be creative till the day she dies.
yeah,
No such thing as retiring if you're in show business, if you're an actor.
yeah.
I mean, some actors just they they move on and they do other stuff. And but I'm always just so amazed by these actors who are going into their 90s, even sometimes 100, and they're
hmm
still acting in things, and it's really
Yeah,
cool.
Christopher Lee. Christopher Lee is another great example
Christopher
of this.
Lee, Ernest Borgnine. I want to
Mhm.
say he was in like Red. Was it Red 1 or Red 2? And he was like in his mid to late 90s or something, and he's like popping up in a big studio movie. It's like that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Mickey Rooney. I think he was in the third Night at the Museum movie, like after like the movie came out after he had passed away.
Yeah.
And I think he had like 2 other projects that year or something, and he was like 100. It's just great.
But you talk about like Boris Karloff, he did the same thing. Bela
Yep.
Lugosi did the same thing. Like you've got all of these very famous horror film stars that were able to survive. Maybe they went to different projects, like Boris Karloff's doing The Grinch. Bela Lugosi's in the Ed Wood stuff, right?
Yeah.
But they were all able to get through, and they were able to maintain, a presence, and they were able to continue to support themselves in this particular genre, which I think is kind of cool because you don't have a lot of genres that are able to support actors
Yeah.
continuously for so long.
Yeah, and you go where the work is. If the leading roles for Vincent Price dry up, he'll find work elsewhere. He's big enough horror name that like he'll find work somewhere. And so I can't say I've seen a lot of his work between like mid 70s to his death. I mean, Edward Scissorhands is the big one that pops out, but he's in what, 2 scenes. So it's not like it's not like a role that he had to spend a lot of time on. I'm really curious to see the progression of his career after Dr. Phibes. They could have made another sequel, Jonathan. Which
Television
title?
series, too.
Which title? They were going to do it, maybe a TV show too.
Yeah.
What would that have looked like?
So in this TV show, because if you can sort of tell that Phibes is sort of transitioning from villain to sort of anti-hero to hero. Like you can kind of see this transition in the character. And the TV series, from what I've read about it, sounds like they were going to make Phibes sort of this anti-hero. He was sort of this crime solver.
Okay,
Like
that would
was
make
going
sense.
to be able to figure out, work with the police and figure out, how different crimes were being committed, which I think is a very fascinating concept. And I would have liked to have at least seen a pilot for that because it sounds really cool.
Yeah, it's what makes this film and Abominable kind of different in that the villain of the movie is kind of your protagonist. It's not like the typical protagonist antagonist story where you're following one and then the antagonist is corrupting the main character. We're kind of on Phibes' side throughout this story. Like we want him to be reunited with his wife again, and so it's not like the typical movie where the villain is someone you're rooting against.
And in the end credits, it lists the protagonists, and then Vincent Price.
That's right.
Dr. Phibes, yeah.
But so there was talk of a third film, Phibes Resurrectus, The 7 Fates of Dr. Phibes, or The Brides of Dr. Phibes. Brides, plural? You needed more than one?
That's what it said. Well, I mean, he's kind of a player anyway. He's got the one that's in the coffin. He's got this Volnavia girl, and he's got another Volnavia, right? Like he's just got Volnavia everywhere. Like he's got the first, Virginia North Volnavia, then he's got this Volnavia. Yeah. Like, I mean, why not, Brian?
I do feel like there should have been one more to make it a trilogy, and it should be called Bride of Phibes. Like there's since both films, there's a big storyline with trying to be with his one true love. It makes sense that this series would have a film called Bride of blah blah blah, since there's so many of those. Bride of Reanimator, Bride of Chucky, Bride of Frankenstein, and Bride of Boogedy.
I don't know if you read this, Brian, but one of the proposed scripts for this third film had Victoria Phibes being resurrected and becoming a even worse homicidal maniac than Dr. Phibes. Did you read that?
Oh no, that would
Yeah.
be interesting. And so Vincent Price would take a little bit more of a secondary role.
I don't know if he'd take a secondary role. I'm not sure what they had in mind for that, but like she was just gonna go at it. Like she was just gonna start killing all
That'd be
sorts of
cool.
crazy people. So
They could have pulled like a Charlton Heston in Beneath the Planet of the Apes, where you see him for 5 minutes at the beginning, 5 minutes at the end. We could have just had like a cameo from Vincent Price, the way we get a 5 minute cameo from the great Peter Cushing in
oh
Dr.
my god,
Phibes
yeah,
Rises Again. What was
really
that?
refreshing to. It was really refreshing to see him. Like I really liked.
He's in just like one scene.
I know.
Like did they just pay him for a day's work? Like what was that about?
I don't know, because he was, of course, if we remember, he was supposed to play the Joseph Cotton role.
Yeah, in the first one.
In the first film, right? And so they brought him in as the cat. I have to say, Brian, as I was watching this film for the first time, I was so disappointed that this whole thing didn't take place on a ship.
Oh, okay.
Like, could you imagine? Like, this is just a great idea for a movie. Nobody steal this idea, okay? If you're listening to this, do not steal this idea. I want the Dr. Phibes taking out the entire cruise ship. Like, I feel like that should have been the second film. Like, it's sort of like,
and Egypt is the third one,
and then Egypt is the third one. Yeah. I think it would have worked out so well, and it would have been so fun, because that ship was a lot of fun, Brian. Like, I don't know, like they got this big bottle, they got like these cutouts of these people. Like, it was just looked like a lot of fun to be on that ship. And then they stuck the guy in the big bottle and threw him overboard. I mean, it's funny. There were a lot of really creative ways to kill somebody on a cruise ship. So I would love to have seen that.
They could have done it like Friday the 13th, Part 8.
Yeah.
Jason Takes Manhattan, where he's not really in Manhattan until the last 15 minutes. Most of the movie is on a ship. So I don't know what that would have.
I didn't know that was a thing.
That's right. We've talked about that. You don't like or have seen the Friday the 13th. Yeah. But
I tried to get through number one, but that was too much for me.
The first one was too much.
Yeah, it was. It was not good.
Friday the 13th, you don't feel good about yourself after you've binged all, 12 movies, but they're fun while you're watching them.
Well, I'm glad you have fun, bro.
I don't know what a cruise ship setting for the whole movie would have gained. I mean, there's that scene of the dancing on the ship, and is there very much? I mean, there's what, maybe 5 to 10 minutes on the ship. It's not very much.
I really like it. It's sort of like a Murder on the Orient Express type vibe.
Okay.
Kind of like that whole, like, we're going to put people in this isolated place where they can't escape, and we're going to kill them all. Right. It's a lot of fun, because if you set this in London, if you set this in the middle of the desert, that's kind of, I don't know how you do that, but they did it. There's places to go, there's places to run, but you can't get off the ship. And so I think that increases the terror and the tension. Okay. It would have to be written a little differently, right?
Yeah.
But I really like that concept.
Yeah, I mean, clearly there wasn't a huge budget for Rises Again, because all the exterior scenes in Egypt look like you're on a backlot. Like, it looks like we're in like the fourth Mummy sequel from like 1944 at the backlot of Universal. I mean, you can like almost see the stages, and I'm like, you can't really get away with that in 72.
Where were they filmed? I don't think
it was filmed in, wasn't it filmed in England? What did it say at the end?
I thought the Egypt scenes were filmed somewhere else.
I'm pretty sure they weren't filmed in Egypt.
No, they weren't. They were not filmed in Egypt, but I thought they were filmed somewhere.
Let me pull up. I have the IMDb. Let's see if it has filming locations. Filming locations. It was filmed in Spain.
Oh, Spain.
Okay, so did they have a studio there? I wonder.
I don't know.
Let's see. Yeah. Oh, this is okay. So it was filmed partly in Spain, and then this is what I saw at the end of the end credits. It said Elstree Studios in England. It said that at the end of the movie. I thought it was like the last title or something. It said like filmed at Elstree Studios. So I think those scenes of outdoor Egypt were in Elstree Studio.
No, I thought they were in Spain.
They were in Spain. That was really outside?
I believe they were filmed in Spain.
That's really interesting, because it looked like it was a soundstage.
I can't say for sure, but I think
maybe not all. Maybe a little bit of it was shot outside, but there was like one scene towards the end.
There was one scene
where I was like, this is
there was one scene that looked like a soundstage.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there is
that.
that scene of that man walking down like the dune.
Yeah.
And in the like that looked pretty good. Like there
and
were some moments.
And I think that where he and Volnavia are in the little tent eating, I think that could not have been filmed on a.
Yeah. But moving beyond, we're really in the nitty gritty here in terms of like the overall movie itself. Like,
what we do, Brian.
Did you get really wrapped up in the progression of the plot of Dr. Phibbes Rises Again? Was it? I mean, I wrote down it had a lot of the same problems as Abominable did.
No, incorrect.
Yes.
False.
And that there's not a lot of raising of stakes or tension in the story. Like it just kind of both movies are kind of like this.
No, like incorrect. No. So here, this is
not okay. This is not. I don't know how you watch Abominable and say this is a great film, and then you watch Rises Again, and you're like, this is a piece of crap.
Okay.
Because they're very close to me. No, I think they're very close in terms of quality.
No, 100% not. So let me explain to you.
Explain to me why Abominable is great and this is not any good. Rises Again.
I didn't say this wasn't any good.
Okay.
It just wasn't as good as the Abominable Dr. Phibbes. So the Abominable Dr. Phibbes really, it starts off sort of as a mystery because you have no idea who this Dr. Phibbes dude is. You have no idea who really is doing the killings. You have to figure out, why is this guy doing these killings? And then once you find out the guy is doing the killings, then you have to figure, well, how is the guy doing the killings? Oh, he's doing the killings based on the Bible. He's doing all of these different murders based on which is a really fascinating concept. And then we have to figure out, well, we know that it's revealed that he's killing people now because his wife was killed on the operating table. They didn't save her. And so now we have to figure out how all of these other doctors are going to be killed based upon all of these things in the Bible. And then there's the death of the firstborn, which I think is extremely climactic because you're like, now you know exactly who's going to die, and you know that he has to die at the end of the movie, but it's like, how is he going to die? How is Dr. Phibbes going to pull this off? Because this is an innocent. This is, just a kid that didn't have anything to do with this at all. And so I see that as a really good progression. Whereas in Dr. Phibbes Rises Again, how is he killing people? He's just like got these strange murder traps, like just stored in Egypt somewhere.
Yeah.
Like inside of a cave somewhere in Egypt.
So the people that die in Rises Again are not the same doctors, are they?
No.
Yeah. So
they
why?
Have nothing to do with
what is it? Just because they're on his tail and could maybe prevent him from succeeding in his mission? Yeah. That's why they're dying.
That's the only reason that they're dying. Okay. Like he's literally got like a whole bunch of murder traps that he's just, for some reason, he's got these in his little Egyptian hideout, when really in reality the only reason that he would be going to Egypt, according to this film, is to resurrect Victoria. And so we're sort of in this, you have to really suspend your disbelief a lot in this particular film, because you have to accept the fact that all of these murder traps are just there just in case these people show up. Yeah, right. And so,
but the scenes themselves are pretty strong. I thought they were good. You didn't like the scenes themselves of the guy who gets with the arms, he gets like sucked into that chair and he's stuck, and then the scorpions come out. That was more visceral to me than anything in Abominable.
It was great. I mean, it reminded me of a number of things. It reminded me of a number of scenes from the original. The blood draining scene where the guy is strapped to the table and he's getting his blood drained, and then of course the rat scene where the rats are chewing on the pilot, right, as he's doing this stuff. Yeah. So I mean, it harkened back to the original in a lot of ways. I did enjoy the scorpion scene. I thought it was very well done, but I didn't see any particular murders that were as good as the frog scene in the original with that frog mask.
The frog mask, the guy who he puts on the mask and then it tightens around his neck or something. Is that what happened?
The head shrinker. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was good. I like that.
No, that was. I
remember it got kind of. I mean, how many murder scenes are there in Abominable? Like 6 or 7?
9 killed you. 9 shall die. Yeah.
Not 9. I felt it. I felt it got kind of repetitive in Abominable. Like there were just so many, just every few minutes, and there was something about there not being as many in Rises Again that I felt like it worked a little better. It wasn't as repetitive. It wasn't as constant. I don't know.
Yeah, I can see that. That's a legitimate criticism.
I was just trying to find things because every time I put one of these old films on, like especially like a horror sequel that I looked up didn't have great reviews, I was like, okay, let's try to find some. Let's try to find some gems here, some good stuff. So yeah, it's kind of like break the movie down, and then if we have anything else trivia wise to add on, it sounds like those were kind of the two big ones, right? Was the lack of the third film and more tension on set. Maybe that's why there wasn't a third film. Maybe like Vincent Price was like, these movies are cursed.
Well, I think that there was supposed to be a third film, and then he wasn't going to do it unless the director from the first two was involved. He said, I'm not doing a Phibes film unless I've got, really crazy avant-garde director and Robert Foist to direct this. So
yeah. So I don't know if the third film could have corrected maybe some things that aren't working in the second one. It feels like if they had gone really quickly with a third film, like maybe it would have just been worse. Maybe it was a good thing they just stopped it here. I don't know. I mean, I think the movie ends on a good note.
It does.
I like it. It's not like it sets it up for a sequel. That would be annoying. It feels like there's a finality to the last scene. It feels like it's over.
I like the ending. I like the ending of the film.
Yeah, I think the best scene of the movie is the last 2 minutes. That's the best part of the movie.
Yeah, I think I agree. It was a great ending. Yeah.
The opening was not as good. The opening, it opens with a recap of the first movie and it's cut together like a trailer.
Yep.
I'm like, I feel like I've seen that in older films, like where they kind of recap the original movie, but never this clunky. Like it just was, it felt weird.
It felt very cheap.
And then you like Friday the 13th Part 2 does that. And sometimes I'm like, okay, Dr. Phibes Rises Again is 89 minutes long. And then you tack on like a 3+ minute recap of the first movie. And so then you're like in your head, like, okay, so that's another 3 minutes off the running time. And then there's credits. So the movie I'm watching is like 83 minutes. So it's like, it's getting shorter. That's a way to do it, I guess, way to save money. But 3 years have passed and Phibes awakens and it's time to go to Egypt. I feel like if there's one thing both of these movies could have done better, I wanted to get to know his wife more. Did that bother you at all?
No.
Like the whole plot revolves around his wanting to be reunited with the wife, but we don't really get to know her at all.
She's not important. It's his feelings for her that are important.
Oh, okay. I mean, not to say that I need 5 flashback scenes, but I'm just like I don't even know who this woman is. Like, why do I care?
Well, no, but we don't have to care about her. All we have to do is we have to care about how he feels about her. And that's why I always think that, anytime you've got this sort of lost love type thing in a movie and you're like, oh, I want to know more about the lost love. It doesn't matter. No one cares. You didn't love the person. You're only interested in the person that's loving the person. So I always think that.
So as long as Phibes loves her and cares about her and wants her back, that's all the audience needs. We don't need to understand the relationship more.
No, I don't think so. It's not important to the plot.
What do you mean it's not important to the plot?
It's not important to the plot. I mean, what they did together is not relevant or important because the only thing that matters is how he feels.
Okay.
That's just how I view it because I've heard this before. And I'm like, oh my God, what difference does it make? I don't need to know about their relationship. Their relationship doesn't matter to me. It's unimportant. How he feels about their relationship is the only thing that drives the plot forward.
Okay,
because she could have been a lousy lady. Like if we did a flashback, we might not have liked her. And then that would have completely undermined the entire film. But because he's so good at lamenting this lost love, and all of this comes through the acting of what he wants. And I think that anytime that you show something like that, you risk losing the audience. Because like, oh, this just wasn't what Vincent Price made it out to be. Because I mean, how many actors are going to be able to convince you that they really truly love someone and are going to kill 9 people just to avenge their death? Like that actress that they hire to play her and in any scenes would have to live up to the same standard of Vincent Price's acting. And that's where I view that as a major risk.
And I think there was time in the running time to make it happen.
Yeah,
89 minutes.
And it was not necessary. I don't think the film needed to be any longer than it was.
Okay. Oh, no, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think this would have been deadly at 2 hours. I think 89 minutes. You know, a lot of movies, I think, are better at 90 minutes.
I agree.
I have found as I get older. So I wrote down 2 quotes from the movie, Jonathan. My first quote that I wrote down that I really liked was, "We'll find the door that separates the living from the dead." I was like, I want that movie.
I can see that. I can appreciate that.
The other line I wrote down, which I thought was fantastic, this was the big laugh. Something I did not do in Abominable. I did not laugh in Abominable, but I laughed in this. Murdered, killed. Yeah, I got that. No, that didn't make you laugh, that line. Murdered, killed. Yeah, I got that.
I thought there were a lot more funny lines in the original.
Better ones in the original. Yeah, half of the episode about Abominable was you explaining to me why it was funny.
That's right, because it was.
And I just remember in the original, those scenes in like at the station or whatever with those guys. I mean, they would go on and on and on. And I think a reason why I could tolerate Rises Again a little bit better, the movie moved a little bit quicker and it was cut a little faster. They didn't have long dialogues.
I agree. I think that is also a legitimate criticism. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think if there's a reason to watch this movie over anything, it's the kill scenes, it's the 3 or 4 attack scenes in the movie and the ending. I think those are what kind of pull you through if you're a horror buff and you're a Vincent Price fan and somehow you've missed this one. I think it's worth a look once on that level, but as an overall story in terms of its pacing and like there's not a whole lot going on here that's of interest.
I mean, the plot is not as phenomenal as the first film. I thought the first film had a phenomenal plot.
Phenomenal is a giant word there, John.
No, it's absolutely inspired. I don't understand how you don't appreciate the level of inspiration that went into the original Abominable Dr. Phibes. Like everything that I talked about, like
the visuals are strong. The storyline is not phenomenal.
It is phenomenal. This one is not phenomenal. This one is not even Murder by Numbers. Because I mean, so when you think about Murder by Numbers, you think about Agatha Christie, you think And Then There Were None. Like that is like the epitome of a Murder by Numbers story. And so that And Then There Were None is an absolutely phenomenal book. Like it's really amazing. And then to take that and apply that to the horror genre, it's inspired. I mean, I know you're not going to agree with me on this, but there's going to be a lot of people that are listening to me and will agree with me on this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I know. But
no, I would agree. I think a lot of the listeners who are interested in Vincent Price and Abominable Dr. Phibes and Dr. Phibes Rises Again, and they grew up with these movies, I think you're going to get more people to agree with you than with me.
Well, they better. But anyway,
I'm just the host. What do I know?
Exactly. So as far as Dr. Phibes Rises Again goes, there isn't anything to this plot. I mean, there is something in him wanting to resurrect her, and people getting in the way. So I mean, but it's just not as sophisticated as I think the first concept. And part of the reason that you have this unsophisticated plot is because you had 2 script writers, and they didn't do anything to ensure that their scripts could merge together. They just took part of the first script and part of the second script, and they just slapped them together. Like, well, I like this in the first script and like this in the second, and they just slapped them together. And then you have a whole bunch of gaps in this film because you got 2 actors, 2 of those British character actors that were supposed to have a lot more scenes in this particular movie. And the producers were just fighting over that. And so they just cut them out, which the most irritating thing about this film, Ryan, is that Dr. Phibes talked so much,
Mm-hmm.
and without his stereo speaker.
But he doesn't move his lips, right?
No, but I don't want to hear his voice unless
So you don't hear him as much in the first one.
no. And that's
Okay.
what was absolute. That's what made the Dr. Fives character so phenomenal, I
It's
think, in
just
that
through his
first film.
eyes.
Because it was through most of the conversation, most of his thoughts, expressions were through his hand movements, through his eyes, his gesturing. And then when you wanted to hear him, he had to hook up to a physical speaker. But what they did in this film, because it really bothered me, so I had to look it up after I watched it. It's like, why is he talking? He's not connected to his speaker. How is he talking? Right. And so as I'm watching, I'm like, well, it's just in his mind, right? He's saying these things in his mind. But I'm like, that just completely undermines the whole character. And the reason that they did this was because there was so much of the film that was cut that they just had to have him come in and re-record some lines to explain what was happening so that you would have a consistent narrative.
So there's lots of scenes from the sequel that were cut.
Yeah.
Like they were left on the cutting room floor.
Yes, there were a whole bunch of scenes involving two of those British character actors. If you recall when they brought in that woman, right? The only time we ever see that woman that gets brought into the police station, and she points at the map and she says, I don't think they're going here. This is where they're going. I was like, well, this could be very interesting. How does she know this, right? And apparently there was a whole thing revolving her and having knowledge of this sort of these events taking place and stuff like that, that were going to explain and help the police be able to find the location of Dr. Phibes and all of this. And it was just cut, which is why you have all of these just random scenes with these close-ups of Vincent Price and these sort of narration that he's giving.
So that was added later.
That was added
have the movie make more sense.
Yeah, just so that there would be a consistent narrative. Yeah, because I watched this thing, I was just like, why is he talking?
That also seems to be a running thing. These movies we talk about are a lot of scenes on the cutting room floor. Did the director of Rises Again have more than a day to cut out his 40 minutes or whatever?
Well, obviously,
Night of Dark Shadow.
He was able to they were able to write dialogue.
Yeah.
They were able to have Vincent Price come in and say the dialogue. So I mean, it makes sense. Like, I watched the movie and it makes sense, right? It's not as good as it could have been, but it makes sense.
Yeah, that still boggles my mind that Night of Dark Shadows turned out as well as it did, considering that all of those scenes were shaved off in a day. That's crazy. So at least the filmmaker of this one didn't have to do that. But yeah, I didn't, in my research for this movie a couple days ago, I didn't see anything about deleted scenes. So I'm assuming those scenes are just lost, gone forever.
I mean, with a film like Dr. Fives Rises Again, I'm pretty sure that AIP just, threw away everything.
They threw away everything.
Yeah, like it's on the cutting room floor. It's just going away because we're just viewing this as like some horror sequel to, whatever it is. I don't know anything about it. Like, I know that because Dark Shadows has a very particular rabid fandom, right? And so there's like a very specific, and Dan Curtis was very much, no, I am preserving every single episode of this TV show. Like, I am making sure that I have every single episode of this TV show. So it also sort of depends on who's running the thing, right? And how they view the project. And so a Dan Curtis project is more likely to have deleted scenes, particular content and stuff, whereas
they still haven't released the Night of Dark Shadows, right?
That's because Warner Brothers sucks.
We were talking about, like, when we were recording our episode for Night of Dark Shadows, we're like, it's the 50th year, like maybe this would be the time to bring it out. I think Scream Factory needs to get a hold of it. That would be
I think so. Chance. I think if Scream Factory got
they do great work
of it, they would be good. Yeah, I know they do great work.
I'm trying to think. I don't think Dr. Phibes Rises Again, which was on the Scream Factory label in one of the 3 box sets, I don't think this had many bonus features. Like maybe a commentary, maybe something, but it wasn't much.
Yeah, no, it's not a beloved sequel. It's not like anything like that. So
yeah, but yeah, I mean, it wasn't all. I mean, I've looked at other films for the podcast this year that I struggled to get through more than this one. I had, it was an okay time. I liked, I was watching this. I'm like, I could watch Vincent Price do just about anything. Like, I just find him such a charismatic, engaging actor. And I'm kind of intrigued to watch some of his earlier films that weren't in the horror genre, like to see the kind of actor he was at the beginning. I know he's in the film Laura from 1944, I believe. and he's like, it's like a dramatic role for him in that. I would like to see kind of his early work too. There's something about him. There's like this there's something in the eye that just like you can tell like he's kind of winking at you and he's like, we're having fun, just go with it.
Yep.
And he does that here too. I mean, I think he played the role just as well as he did in Abominable.
Yep, I think he did a fantastic job.
He makes he makes it worth looking at least once.
Yeah, it was just that dubbing like that. I just like, why is he?
I like his voice though.
Yeah, I mean it's great. Like if he were hooked up to a speaker, yeah. I mean, because otherwise he should be talking like a normal person. Like if these are just thoughts in his head, right? He should be talking just like Anton Pipes would talk before the accident. So.
Yeah. But the kill scenes are good. That bird attack scene, is that an eagle? That scene was, I thought shot pretty well.
I mean, I guess it. So in the trailer they call it an eagle.
Okay.
I thought it was a hawk, but is it an eagle?
Yeah, I was like, is this a hawk? Is this an eagle? I wasn't quite sure. You don't really see it full on, but I thought that scene was shot and cut together fairly well.
Wasn't it that big hawk that was in his in his area? It was the same bird, right?
Oh, you're probably right. Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought it was continuity.
I thought it was scary. Like when we got to see that bird, like I thought, well, this is generally people think of like ravens as being like these birds associated with horror films, but this thing, boy, that was pretty. And the black color of it, like I could see a whole horror movie about that. That animal.
I thought the makeup job they did, like the makeup effects on that guy's cheeks, looked really, really good for a low budget. I mean, I say low budget. I don't know how much this movie costs, but it looked like it wasn't that high of a budget.
There was a lot of cost cutting because apparently, you know, that the pyramid at the end was supposed to have like several layers of different traps for Robert Quarry, but then that just got cut for the budgetary reasons.
And then the scorpion scene I thought was the most powerful kill scene in the whole movie. I love the cutting of it, and you could really put yourself in that guy's position. Like, what if because I mean, I don't think very many people like to be covered with scorpions, and imagine being in a chair where you can't move and you have these, what were those things like poking into his arms that basically he couldn't even move his arms. He was bleeding all over. They were like spikes, or what were they?
Yeah, so the whole chair was a scorpion chair.
Yeah.
And so the arms of the chair were the claws of the scorpion.
Right.
And they had these spikes and they clamped in. I thought it was a really creative death trap. Like it was really well done. And then the whole, RCA Victrola, the master's voice, the dog, like that, like with the gramophone and the dog, like this thing should have had a lot more. Like this was phenomenal.
More of those kind of scenes.
Like, well, yeah, but I think that this scene should have just been played up more. Like all of a sudden, the his master's voice, the dog, and the gramophone, that whole RCA Victrola component of this was so inspired. I thought it was really, really well done. Like this rose to the level of something you would see in the first film. And I just was like, why are we not having more of this? Why are we just all of a sudden, this is just sort of played off like it's a sight gag, when in reality it should have been really built up a lot more than it was.
Yeah, but I think we can all picture ourselves in a position where we can't move, and scorpions are covering your body and they're actually going in under your clothes. I mean, that's scary. And so I thought that part of the movie worked well. Like you could really feel the pain and the terror of that person. Like the actor did well in the scene. It was cut fast, not too fast. I was like, okay, we're lingering here and we're going with this. And I thought that was well done. And I like that there was the return of those those dummy guys. Like those were like one of my favorite parts of the original. So I'm like, even though he goes to Egypt, they're still there. Like they came with him or they were waiting for him. I wasn't quite clear about that.
So they were, they must have been shipped because they were
shipped on the boat.
They were on the boat because when you had Victoria inside of the little chamber, pressurized chamber, we saw that they were in there too. Now they were destroyed by Volnavia at the end of the first film, so he just must have had extras stored somewhere in the basement.
He had some extras. He had a few extras that we didn't see in the first one. Something else that he had an extra Volnavia, so
yeah.
And this bothered me in the first one, and I thought about it again the second one here. It's like there's never a moment in either film where you think that Phibes might die.
No.
There's never any tension there. Like I
Well,
feel like the
like
movie could have gone a little bit more into like thinking that this, like, at least what he wants could be taken away from him. There's not a whole lot of that. Everything just feels like it's going to work out.
Like he said, what can you do to a dead guy?
Kill him again.
I mean,
blow him up.
I mean, he and I think that's part of the charm of the character is that he is so invincible, and he believes in his own immortality so much, and he believes that he's always going to be able to get away with every single thing. And I think the closest thing we have to that is when Victoria gets abducted, like in this sarcophagus, right? And I'm just like, why did he put her in there anyway? Like, that's just my question.
Wasn't his smartest moment.
No.
The production design of the film is strong. In when we get interiors, like the lair at the end, I thought looked really great. Just as good, if not better, his lair in Abominable. And then we get the last few minutes, which I thought I called it like gloriously operatic. It's just like all of a sudden at the end, it gets big and the music swells and he gets on that boat and you see the guy rapidly age right in front of him, right behind the gate. And it's done really well. Looks really creepy. And the music gets bigger and bigger. And he sings, of all songs, Over the Rainbow, which is the song I've always like. You just need to tweak that song a little bit and it can have kind of some creepy kind of creepy vibes to it. And hearing Vincent Price as Phibes sing that song, which we all know, as he like paddles away on the boat, I thought was beautiful. I love that. That was cool.
Yeah, I thought it was great. Because if you remember in the first Phibes film, he was supposed to go in the big balloon, like the Wizard of Oz, right? And so that's why that song was in the very first end credits too. And I was glad to see that it was brought back for the end credits in the sequel.
Yeah, but I'm all for any movie using Over the Rainbow in some, kind of creative capacity. Like, go for it.
I mean, remember that original arrangement that we heard at the end of the first film? I thought it was just one of the best arrangements that I've heard of. Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like that they continued with that. It's, from what I read here, it looks like in later prints and in the video version, a scene featuring Vincent Price singing Over the Rainbow is removed for copyright reasons. The DVD release in 2001 restores the Vincent Price sung Over the Rainbow. So how did the movie end in those versions without, they just cut the movie down as like they,
I don't know.
I mean, isn't he singing it over the end credits?
He is.
So how does the movie end in the other print?
They must have changed it with some different music.
Maybe he's singing like the end of Thriller.
No, I don't. I don't think he's singing. I'd be interested in checking that out, though. That's something for me to check out. I'll do that right
that's
after
how
we
the
finish
movie ends. How did it end? I mean, maybe it's on YouTube since it looks like it in the VHS version they couldn't include Over the Rainbow. Maybe it's on YouTube.
That's what I'm wondering. Yeah.
As another podcast I listened to a few weeks ago turned me on to, that you can look up like any movie that came out on VHS. And if you look it up on YouTube, like you can watch the previews that were on the VHS tape before the movie started. Like people will just upload those like 1 to 2 minute previews, and it'll have like the copyright page and everything. And then it'll like be the opening, like the logo of the movie, like the studio logo. And then that'll be the end of the YouTube clip.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's great.
I didn't even know these existed.
Yeah, I watch those sometimes.
So last night after the movie ended, I looked up Dr. Phibes Rises Again. Sometimes I get lucky and there'll be like an interview with the actor or the director or something later on, and I couldn't find anything. Like there wasn't much on this movie on YouTube from my 1 minute of searching. Like maybe if I went deeper, but not a lot of people are talking about this movie 50 years on, but we are on Film at 50.
Interestingly enough, on Facebook, when you first told me about this, there were a lot of posts about Dr. Phibes Rises Again, people watching it. I think it was actually on Svengoolie.
Okay.
So I think it has some attention now.
Yeah, I've been. Do you have a Shudder, the horror movie streaming service? Shudder.
No.
So I have that, and there's this. It's called the late. What's it called? The the late drive-in. It's this guy Joe Bob Briggs, and he introduces a lot of classic horror films. And just this week, he introduced the old 1922 Nosferatu for its 100th anniversary. And he's like talking about the history of the movie and giving all sorts of great research. And so it'll like play like 20 minutes of the movie, and then it goes back to him and he talks about it. It's called The Last Drive-In. That's what it's called, with Joe Bob Briggs.
Oh yeah,
and,
I think I've heard of The Last Drive-In.
Yeah, The Last Drive-In.
Yeah.
And so I sometimes I like to watch films with his commentary. Sometimes that brings more out of the movie than if I were to just watch it just on its own. And so I almost feel like it would be interesting to get some more, commentary from someone on Rises Again. I almost wonder, I think for me with both movies, I think it would be fun to watch these with a really well-educated person talking about the movie over the movies. I think I'd actually have a better time with these two.
Wow.
You
so
wouldn't,
just for that,
you
I'm gonna get my Count Orlok just for that. He's gonna come out of his little coffin and he's gonna come and he's gonna attack you. All right, that's what I was looking at. I
love me a good audio commentary, and when it's kind of mid-level movies like these two, I need more than just what's
Count
on
Orlok
the screen.
Is going to get you.
All right, so those of you who are only listening, Jonathan is showing me his Count Orlok action figure.
Yeah, I've got a couple of them.
You've got Dracula in the back, and
I got Dracula in the back. I got the Dracula mask in the back. I've got Creature from the Black Lagoon. I've got Vincent Price over there too. So he was.
So Count Orlok does not approve. But what Joe Bob Briggs talked about was how they had to change everything for Nosferatu so that they could legally basically tell Dracula's story without being sued. But then they got sued anyway. Like the wife of Bram Stoker found out about Nosferatu and not only sued, but wanted prints of the movie destroyed, like wanted the movie gone. Yeah. And so Joe Bob Briggs had some things to say about that.
What did he say?
He said some words I can't repeat here about Bram Stoker's wife. How he felt about her.
Well, I mean,
don't destroy art.
I understand, but
you're allowed to sue and make some money, but you're not allowed to destroy someone's work of art.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with that, but I mean, you can understand why she was kind of mad because they literally just didn't pay her for.
No, I get that. No, I get that side. Yeah. I agree with her. I think she should have gone after them and sued them, but I don't agree with you. You should destroy the movie. That doesn't seem right.
Things were different then.
So the fact that Nosferatu 100 years on survives and looks so great, the Shudder version I watched, it looked spectacular. I was like, wow, they've really done wonders with this movie. Well, I don't know if Rises Again will get that kind of love in another 50 years, but
no, I don't think so. But when you think about those lost films, all the destroyed films, like London After Midnight, the Lon Chaney film. Like, I mean, I really wish somebody would dig that up out of some place, right?
It's got to be somewhere, right? I mean, don't they disintegrate after a certain amount of time? Like 100 years?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, if that's the case, then we're kind of out of luck. I mean, there was that fire. I guess the fire at Universal took out some stuff.
That was in the late 20s. No, when was the fire at Universal? It was later.
I'm not entirely sure.
There was a big fire that destroyed a lot of their old films, right?
Yeah. And so there's got to be a copy of it somewhere. Like there just has to be, and it just hasn't been discovered yet. But
yeah. But anyways, we wrap up our talk about Dr. Phibes. I mean, part of the reason I struggled a bit with this, because I don't know if you're a fan, Jonathan, but we're recording this at the end of May. I just spent most of my weekend binging all 7 hour-plus episodes of the new Stranger Things season 4, which is just on another level of epic horror. It is insane how gorgeous and how amazing the show is. And it's very long. I think it's maybe too long. Season 4, it just goes on forever. But
I don't think Stranger Things can ever be too long.
I love the characters in that world, so I'm like, okay, go for it.
All right, hold on, Brian. And I'm digging this up for you, okay?
Okay, but Dr. Phibes Rises Again, watching that kind of towards the end of my binge of Stranger Things season 4, volume 1, it suffered a bit in comparison. This other thing I've been watching.
It doesn't fit with my headphones, but here's my Steve hat.
He's got the Steve hat.
I got my Steve hat. Scoops ahoy!
Scoops ahoy! Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. So you are a Stranger Things fan. I don't think we've ever talked about that show.
I love Stranger Things.
Have you started the new season yet?
No, do not spoil it for me. Though.
I know everything that happens.
No, stop. This is
as of now, it is made for the fans. Like it's like, I mean, every episode is like 75 minutes. And then the last one I just watched was an hour and 40.
Okay, how did you feel about the first episode? Because I've heard some people didn't like it.
It's funny. The first 2 episodes of season 4 are a little shaky. It's like, okay, for me, like even like lackluster, bottom of the barrel Stranger Things is still of interest, but it felt like it was really taking its time for a couple episodes. The episodes end with like a great moment of horror, but other than that, it's just kind of like setting up where everyone is. And I think the big problem with the show as of now is that it is set up so many characters. I mean, it's like 20 plus characters, and many of them are on their own adventures. And that's why these episodes are so long. They're just like, we have to go with every single character here. And so that's what makes this season longer than the first 3. But I just adore these characters in this world. And so I'll go anywhere the Duffer Brothers want to take me. I think it's a lot of fun. And like I read that the season costs $270 million, and you see it on the screen.
That's like nothing, Brian.
It's really, I mean, there's some sequences in season 4 that are spectacular, and just like, I mean, stuff you would see in a movie theater. Like it's really great. So enjoy. You're gonna have a good time.
I know some of the episodes are longer than actual movies.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like, so it's 9 episodes total. The first 7 just dropped, and then July 1st, the last 2 dropped. And I believe someone told me the last episode on July 1st is 2.5 hours long.
Yeah, I believe that's what I'm talking about. Like, there's one episode that's like 2.5 hours. So I'm waiting to get my Netflix subscription until I can watch all of them, together.
Oh, okay.
So.
Yeah, but definitely check it out. That is what has given me life this weekend in terms of storytelling. It's been so much fun. And then Dr. PHIBES Rises Again was kind of a meh. Okay, fine. I don't know. You know what? Maybe just to make you happy, John, I'll say Abominable is a little better. There you go.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Brian. Thank you. You have restored a little bit of the faith that I had in you.
I would give them both 2.5 stars out of 4, but I'll say Abominable is just like a little better.
Abominable's like 3.5. Amazing.
All right, so that takes us to our final 2 segments. The first one's the Divine Double Feature. What would we pair with Rises Again? Something in the last 20 years. Did you think of anything?
The only thing that came to mind, and there's very few reasons for this, but the only thing that came to mind was that 2005 adaptation of Phantom of the Opera.
The 2004
one. Yeah, 2004
with Emmy Rossum and Gerard Butler.
Yeah,
I only saw it the once. I don't remember it.
It's because of I just relate this to Phantom of the Opera because of the gondola.
Yeah, right? That's a good idea. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I would revisit that movie again.
Phantom type character. He's sort of a Phantom type character. PHIBES is
Patrick Wilson. Joel Schumacher directed that movie. Not a lot of people, I think, remember that. Joel Schumacher film. Yeah, and my choice was I went with a modern horror sequel that is better than the original and really builds on what came before. So I went with The Conjuring 2 from 2016.
Oh, you picked The Conjuring 2.
Yeah, which I probably picked for a couple other episodes because I love that movie. Like, it was so weird, John. Like, you were with me when we saw The Conjuring.
Yeah.
And we had a group of like 8 people.
Yep.
And everything I had heard for weeks was that this is the horror film of the year. It's amazing. It's terrifying. Get ready. Buckle up. And it did not make me jump once. And I was like, well, it's fine. I didn't think it was that scary. And then 3 years later, I go with Shanta to see The Conjuring 2, not expecting to be that scared because the first one didn't scare me. And that might have been one of the most terrifying experiences I've had in the theater. The sound was just blasting, and it's like every scene there's a jump. There was just constant and dread, and really creepy images. And I was like, whoa. And like our walk back to the parking lot was kind of creepy. I was like, it was late at night. And I was like, I'm a little shaken by this movie.
Huh, that's
and
good.
So I love The Conjuring 2. The third one was not good. I saw that last year.
It was not.
The devil
made
inside me.
The devil made me do it. Not the devil inside me. That's a different movie.
The devil made me do it. I got through because of Vera Farmiga, who I adore. I don't watch her in anything.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't on the same level.
No.
It wasn't the same director. James
the problem.
Wan.
That's the problem.
You could tell it was someone else.
You switched directors. I know. And it just felt very like it just was not engaging. And honestly, with the title like The Devil Made Me Do It, like it should have been really good.
The Devil Made Me Do It. That's a mouthful.
It should have been really good though.
Why wasn't it just called The Conjuring 3?
I don't know, because the whole point was, that was the in court, that was the defense. The devil made me do it.
Oh, right.
So that was like it's
just a lot to put on a poster.
It's a lot to put on a poster, but like that phrase has a lot of like stuff behind it, and I just wish that it would have translated and not this weird place that this film went in this sort of anticlimactic way. Like I don't know. I didn't take to The Conjuring 3. Like I didn't even.
It was okay.
I wouldn't watch it again, which is saying something because like I would definitely watch PHIBES Rises again.
You'd watch Rises again?
Yeah, I would, but I would not watch Conjuring 3 again.
I don't think I'll watch Rises again.
I mean,
unless it's got like a really great commentary.
I know you won't, but I mean, I would. It's got Vincent Price, for God's sake.
Vincent Price. Maybe 1 year down the road, I'll do a year of Vincent Price. I pick an actor every year. Maybe 1 year. As I talked about, I said I'd love to see some of his early dramatic work. I'd like to see some of those, small gems he might have made in the 80s and stuff. And if I'm, maybe if I'm still doing this podcast years and years from now, maybe I'll get to him, but maybe not. I don't know. So I feel like there's probably 10 to 15 movies of his that I would love that I just haven't seen for whatever reason. So. But I still think I might skip the rest again, but we'll see. So that takes us to our final segment. So it's getting really tricky, Jonathan. I've done so many horror film episodes that we're running out of ideas for Beyond the Flick at this point. I think, were you my guest for the one we did, horror movie sequels? Was that you? Where I talked about like Wes Craven's New Nightmare and Scream 2 and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that was Night of Dark. Was that Night of Dark Shadows?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've done that. And then 2 weeks ago, I did an episode where we talked about 70s horror movie sequels. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, okay, so what do I do with Rises Again? We've done Vincent Price. There's no one else in this cast. We've talked about Peter Cushing on an episode for Beyond the Flick segment. And I looked up the director and the screenwriters. There was nothing. I was like, well, how about we do classic horror sequels that came before the 70s? We haven't really talked about that. So we're going to end with that.
Okay.
So prior to the year 1970, like what are 2 or 3 sequels to horror films that you like prior to 70?
Okay. Well, there's a lot.
Yeah.
Like
a lot of the Universal monster movies you could go
obviously. To. So I love Son of Frankenstein is my favorite of the Frankenstein series. I love Son of Frankenstein. Like I know that people say Bride is like the best, and I totally agree that it is such an artistic, beautiful film.
That's funny you say that.
I love Bride of Frankenstein. I prefer Son of Frankenstein.
Yeah, because last summer for the podcast, we looked at Frankenstein and Dracula. And I also, for that episode, looked at Bride and Dracula's Daughter. And it got me kind of interested to look at some of the later sequels, which I have not seen in a long time. And I have the set of like the big ones, but I don't have the sets with like the smaller sequels and some of the 40s stuff. And so I thought
you don't have like the full. Like,
I did at one point. Oh wait, is that on the Blu-ray?
Yeah, I got to pull it out.
Does the classic Monster Collection have Son of Frankenstein, the Mummy's Hand, and that stuff?
Has it all. I'm going to show you.
What's it look like?
Because
I'm pretty sure the one.
It's behind my Stranger Things, but this is the one that has every single movie.
Oh, okay. No, I don't have that one. I have like this. No, okay. So what's it called on the front? What's it called? So the set I have.
Universal Classic
Monsters complete 30 film.
Complete 30 film collection.
Okay, that's the one I need to get.
1956. Yeah, no, this is
And
phenomenal.
that's just everything.
It has every single film.
Oh, that's the one I need.
Entire series. Yes.
The one I have only has like the 8 like big classic films like Frankenstein, Dracula, Bride of Frankenstein, Creature of the Black Lagoon, Invisible Man. Yeah. Just the really big ones. It doesn't have many sequels.
Comes with a nice little
and I was so taken with Bride and Dracula's Daughter. I thought, when I get some time here, I'd love to get the larger set and watch the other sequels. And I thought I might do that this summer. I thought it'd be fun.
No, that would be a phenomenal.
Is that I'm assuming that set is very expensive.
No, I think
30 movies. Is it, can I get it for less than like 60, 70 bucks? Is it more than that?
Oh, well, if you're that cheap, Brian.
I'm very cheap.
Well, I don't know if you can get it for that. I don't remember how much I paid for. I mean, yeah, I got it for probably around 100.
You got it for 100.
Yeah. And
so Universal
Blu-ray. This is
Monster
Blu-ray, so
set Blu-ray. Let's see what it is on Amazon. So the Essential Collection is the one I have. That's $30. And then let's see. I'm not seeing the giant box set, which makes me wonder if it's like in the out of print. It's not coming up.
Well, it better not be.
So if it's out of print, that means it'll be more expensive.
I know that they want to do 4K.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Because the top 3 are just the sets with what does it say? 30 movie collection, 30 movie.
Yes, 30 movie collection.
Oh, here we go. Found it. So it's $125 for the Blu-ray set, and it's $65 for the DVD set.
Okay.
Is the Blu-ray exactly the same bonus features, or is it more?
I have to say that the Dracula Blu-ray, if you have not seen this version of Dracula, you haven't seen Dracula.
Okay.
This is so phenomenal. This is a different viewing experience.
Okay.
Because I love 1931 Bela Lugosi Dracula. Like, it's not my favorite Universal monster movie. Lugosi's Dracula is my favorite Universal monster. It's not my favorite movie. I'm not like your other guest, but I have never ever seen Dracula like this. And I think that you're going to have a whole brand new appreciation for Dracula after viewing this Blu-ray version of the movie. It is so beautiful, so pristine. Like, it's just, it takes you to another world, like seeing it in this high definition, like totally cleaned up, totally restored. Like the box set's worth it just for this.
It's
really,
fantastic.
really well done. Yeah.
And I'll be okay. I think I can pay the 125. I think I'll be fine.
I think I got it.
I do like $65 better, but
well, I think that I think I got it on one of those Amazon Prime Day.
Oh, was it
deals.
a Prime Day deal?
I think
like half off or something?
Special. Yeah. So I got a pretty good price on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to think about it.
It's definitely worth it. And the Dracula Blu-ray, like even if you just get like the DVD set, but then purchase the Dracula Blu-ray separately, it's really, really worth it because it's absolutely beautiful. Like I watched this on Blu-ray, I was blown away.
So what are if you had to pick 2 or 3, so let's say beyond Bride and Son of Frankenstein, what are a couple other of the monster movie sequels that you really love? Beyond
Dracula,
those 2.
Dracula, Prince of Darkness, I like a lot with Christopher Lee.
Oh, no. I mean, we'll get to that one, but in the Universal monster movies.
In the Universal. Okay.
Like, what are like 2 other sequels in that DVD or the Blu-ray set that you think are great?
In this particular set, I thought you were moving us beyond the Universal monster.
Yeah, and then we'll go beyond Universal.
So, let me just look at my options here. Son of Frankenstein is my favorite. Obviously, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Oh yeah,
is my favorite.
Is that on the set?
Oh yeah.
Oh good. Okay.
It includes everything. It includes Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy. Abbott and Costello
meet Boris Karloff.
Meet the Invisible Man. I don't think Boris Karloff's on here.
Okay.
No. So that one's not on here, but it's got Frankenstein, the Invisible Man, and the Mummy. Those are the Abbott and Costello films that are on here.
I don't remember the Invisible Man sequels. Are there more than 2?
Well, Vincent Price is in one of them.
Oh, okay.
Like Vincent Price took over from Claude Rains,
mm-hmm.
And played the Invisible Man, and the Invisible Man returns, I believe. There was the Invisible Woman, which is really not good.
Invisible Woman.
Yeah, it's really really not good. But so yeah, I mean, I think that the first two Frankenstein sequels are phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think that Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein is phenomenal. Okay, I like Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman.
Yep, that one was fun.
Because it's a really good sequel to the Wolfman, and
Mm-hmm.
it's got the Maliva the Gypsy, one
Mm-hmm.
of my favorite characters in the entire Universal canon. I think she's just absolutely phenomenal. Does just a phenomenal job in that role in the Wolfman. I was glad that I got to see more of her in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. And
It's like before the Marvel universe, we had the monster movie universe from Universal in the 40s.
We did. And
Connecting to two different films, the Wolfman and to the Frankenstein franchise. Kind of cool.
Yeah, it was the first monster mashup. Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman.
Yeah.
And so and then also that great scene of Lon Chaney coming back to life. Like it was so atmospheric. Like one of the most atmospheric scenes in all of the Universal films was in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. Absolutely love it.
Any sequel to the Mummy that's worth watching? I remember there were like 4, right? Sequels? So, are they all kind of just mid-level? I'm trying to remember. I can't remember the sequel.
All of the Mummy films beyond the original, they appeal to a very specific type of fan, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a couple people that play. There's Tom Tyler plays the Mummy in one of them, and then Lon Chaney plays the Mummy in the others. Mm-hmm. And so this character of the Mummy
Junior.
is not, yes, Junior. So this character of the Mummy is not Imhotep. It is Karis. And so he's sort of like the one that is sort of affiliated with the Monster Kid generation in the 50s and the 60s, you know, famous monsters of filmland, stuff like that. And so I'm not a big Mummy guy. Like, as the character of the Mummy is not necessarily one of my favorites. In terms of all of the monsters, I would probably put the Mummy as my least favorite.
Okay.
Slightly above the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Does it have the Phantom of the Opera movies?
It doesn't have Chaney's because that's public domain and they can't really make too much money off of it. But it does have the Claude Rains Phantom of the Opera, which is not that great of a film.
That's the one in color, right?
It's in color.
I think that's on my Blu-ray set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're constantly putting that Claude Rains Phantom film on all of the official releases just because they don't have the rights to the Chaney one anymore.
Okay.
So it's sort of like, we can make money off of this film, but it's definitely not on par with Chaney's Phantom.
Right.
So that was a remake. That was one of the earliest remakes, I guess. You know, when you think about remakes, you've got Universal remaking one of their own movies, and I guess that was one of the earliest remakes, going from, you know, Lon Chaney's classic to the Claude Rains film, and it doesn't even play like a monster movie. It doesn't really play like a horror film at all. So it's just sort of ugh. Claude Rains is great. I think he's a fantastic actor, but it's just
so obviously my favorite of all those is Bride, but I do remember really liking Son, which brings back Boris Karloff one last time as Frankenstein's monster, and I'm excited to watch Son again because it's been a long time. I don't remember it very well.
And Bela Lugosi as Igor.
That's right. So beyond the Universal monster movies,
hold on, I got to get my Igor stuff now.
The Igor stuff, you just got everything.
I do. So this is my Igor mask.
Your Igor mask. That's what you wear on Halloween night.
Right here, right there.
Bela Lugosi as Igor.
Yep, and then I got my Igor reaction figure.
So those of you just listening, he's showing me more stuff, more of his
I always
his home goodies. This is why I bring you on for all these classic horror films, because
I know
a wealth of information and you've got goodies to show us.
Speaking of which, here is my Son of Frankenstein reaction figure with my Igor. See?
Oh my gosh. They made Son of Frankenstein action figure?
Yeah. Of course.
That's amazing.
I've got several of them.
Where do you get all this stuff?
Reaction. I mean, where wouldn't you get it?
Like, you just go down to the store and find this stuff?
Well, yeah. I mean, a lot of the stuff you can find at Target and Walmart.
At Target? Okay.
Why are you laughing, Brian? There's literally an entire section devoted to it at both Target and Walmart.
To Son of Frankenstein action figure?
Well, no, to like horror action figures. in the entertainment section. You know, they
I
don't put
feel
up with
like
the
they
toys
might
anymore.
have like the classic film ones, but not some of these sequel rarities. Like I feel like you'd have to really search them out. No. Okay. When I'm at Target in October, I'll look for them.
Well, no, don't go in October. Like they have them now. Like I bet
Go
you could
now.
find, yeah, you can probably find the reaction figures. I don't know if they still have them on the shelf right now at Target, but Target carries the reaction figures. I know that
Okay.
I've seen like different characters there. So yeah.
Cool. So anything outside of Universal Monsters, you were saying, was it Christopher Lee vampire
Yeah.
sequel? Which
I
one of
think
those you like?
Prince of Darkness. I really love Dracula Prince of Darkness.
What
I
year was
think
that?
it
Is that like
60
67?
60 well, Horror of Dracula was 1956.
58, I think.
Was it 58? Okay, so then
Yeah.
I think this one was 1966.
Okay, 66.
Darkness was 66. Yeah. And I love the concept of Prince of Darkness. Christopher Lee doesn't say a thing in it because he just thought the dialogue was trash.
So just don't talk.
So then he just didn't talk.
You don't have to memorize lines.
That's right. And he had a really easy job, and he's so scary, but I remember watching this as a kid on cable during AMC's Monster Fest. That's when I first got introduced to this particular film, and I was just horrified at they slit this guy's throat, they bled him out, Dracula comes up from the ashes of the blood, like it's so good.
So there's real quick, there's a Dracula 1972, right?
Yeah,
I believe that came out in October of 72.
and
I
we're
thought
gonna do that one.
I thought we could talk about that one.
Yep.
And between now and October, I could go back and watch a lot of these Christopher Lee Dracula movies. I have never seen one.
I've never seen one.
Like I've seen clips. I've seen like I think I saw part of Horror of Dracula once.
Okay, well,
like a long time ago.
You need to watch Horror of Dracula.
I might not watch everything. Like if I watch like three or four of them, which ones do I watch before 72?
So if you're gonna watch the three films,
like three
you're gonna watch.
Yeah.
So I would recommend watching Horror of Dracula
from 58.
One. I would watch the Brides of Dracula.
Brides of Dracula. What year is that?
Which doesn't. That was the direct sequel.
So around 60, probably.
Somewhere in there, and that one doesn't have Christopher Lee. It just has Peter Cushing.
Okay.
And has a different vampire, but it's a very good film. And then Dracula Prince of Darkness, which doesn't have Peter Cushing but has Christopher Lee.
Okay. Those are the three to see.
Those are the ones that I would.
And I'll be able to follow 1972 AD.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then there's just one more after that, right? With Christopher Lee, and that's it.
Well, I don't know.
I think we're reaching the end of his run.
Vampires. They've got like a whole bunch of weird ones like that. I don't really pay too much close attention to.
But I thought that
Satanic
would give
Rites
me...
of Dracula. Satanic Rites of Dracula is another one. Yeah.
But I thought that would give me like a nice project over the next few months, maybe one a month. Like just try to fit in and just see a little bit more of those Hammer, Christopher Lee vampire movies. I haven't really seen them.
If you haven't seen Horror of Dracula, the finale of that movie is the best Dracula finale in history.
Okay.
It is absolutely phenomenal. Yeah. And then they replay it. This is sort of like how we were talking about in this episode with Dr. Phibes. You know, they had a recap of what happened previously. Mm-hmm. They do that in Dracula Prince of Darkness since like 10 years passed between, the first one and the next one, right? It wasn't like a year with Phibes, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
But then they show the entire finale from the first film to start off that film. And I think it worked very well there. And I think it was done well, unlike with this Phibes recap.
Yeah. So my favorite classic horror sequel, of course, is Bride of Frankenstein. But two others we haven't mentioned that I really like are Children of the Damned. I think is a pretty solid sequel to Village. And I really like Return of the Fly, sequel to The Fly, which I believe was just a year later, also with Vincent Price. I think the sequel's in color, if I remember right. It's been a few years. But it built both of those sequels I thought built on what came before. And they're not great movies, but outside of the monster films prior to 70, you don't see a whole lot of horror sequels. I read through a list on Friday, and the two titles that popped out to me that came later were Children of the Damned and Return of the Fly. I also like Revenge of the Creature, the Universal Monster sequel, which I believe is the first screen appearance by Clint Eastwood, which is fantastic. In the mid-50s.
Oh, really? That's Clint's first.
Clint Eastwood, I believe, his first feature film role. He plays like a lab scientist for one scene, and he has just maybe 5 to 10 lines. Doesn't say much, but we see a young Clint Eastwood. Revenge of the
Revenge
Creature.
of the Creature action figure right here. There you go, Brian. Just for you.
That's fantastic.
I know it is.
Well, Jonathan, that's
I
about.
also have a Creature Walks Among Us action figure if you want to see that one, but I didn't like that film as much.
Okay. So promise me the next time we talk, when we talk about Dracula 1972 AD, you'll show me some more of your.
Oh yeah,
your action figures.
I've got my Christopher Lee action figures to show. I actually got a Peter Cushing for the first time. Like I've been wanting a Peter Cushing, but
okay, cool.
So I finally got one. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that'll be this year's Halloween episode. I believe that film came out at the end of October of 72. So I think that'll be. I don't know what this always comes out on Fridays. I don't know what the last Friday of the year is. It might be my birthday actually. It might be my birthday, October 28th, might be the Friday this year if I looked it up. I think I looked it up once a few months ago.
It is the 28th. It is the 28th, yes.
So our episode about Dracula, Halloween's on a Monday. Our episode about Dracula 1972 AD will be on my birthday on Friday, October 28th. So we'll probably record that.
Happy birthday.
Sometime around like early October. That'll be fun. Jonathan back for another Halloween episode. So, Jonathan, as we wrap up here, anything else you'd like to say about Dr. Phibes or anything to leave our listeners wondering about?
Dr. Phibes, The Abominable Dr. Phibes is an amazing film. Don't listen to Brian Rowe. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But
so your recommendation is just watch the first one and don't and feel like the second one doesn't exist.
I mean, I'm not saying it's like awful, but I mean it kind of undermines the first one because Victoria's dead, right? And now all of a sudden she's in a state of suspended animation.
Yeah. It's not great. Maybe we'll do Theater of Blood. You like that one? You've seen that?
I love that film.
Okay. I know nothing about that one.
It's really gruesome and really creative, and they all tie back to Shakespeare.
Okay.
So phenomenal.
So we have some more to talk about. Jonathan, we've got Dracula 1972. We have the Night Stalker sequel if we want to do that. And we have Theater of Blood. So we got lots more fun horror content coming your way on Film at 50. Thank you, Jonathan, for being here today. Always a pleasure to have you on the podcast. You can find us online at filmat50.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And check out my YouTube channel, Brian Rowe Video. Until next time, remember, 50 never looked this good.